Okay. So Kim informed me we probably have to do it from our phones, which I'm going to make sure that I prop my phone up so that way you guys don't get dizzy. Okay, let's see. Oh, I think there is an add a person button here. Allow your viewers to request to join as you guests in your front. Okay, cool. All right. Let's see. Oh, cool. There's different filters. Didn't even realize this. All right. Okay. I think we're back. There we go. Okay, so I got 1 thumbs up and a viewer. That means it's working. If you are in here, can you just comment that you can hear me, because I'm using these headphones and they were previously connected to my laptop, so I want to make sure you guys can hear me okay. I feel like I should be playing elevator music right now. Okay, so if you just joined me, I know it's a few minutes after. Okay, great. Thank you, Ricardo, for letting me know the sound's working. It is, I know it's a few minutes after 10. I'm just waiting for Kim to join me. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties this morning. Apparently, I can't do joined Facebook Live videos on my computer. I can only do it on my phone. So sorry about that, guys. Okay, great. Kim's here, so let's go ahead and add, there we go. Okay. It says adding. It's like adding. It's just flashing adding.
It's working.
Oh. Ah! Yay!
Success! Technology works for us.
Woohoo! Yay! This is so great. Okay, awesome.
Let me just make sure I had my phone tilted the wrong way, so we just make sure. There we go. Okay.
Thanks for the heads up. I didn't realize that I had to be on my phone. Luckily, I have my phones next to me, so this is great. Good.
No, I completely forgot. It's been a second since I've done it through Facebook Live before. So we're on. We got it to work.
Yes.
Everything is figure outable.
Awesome. Exactly. So thank you, by the way, Kim, for joining me and for doing this. I really appreciate it.
So my pleasure. Thank you for having me. And everyone, thank you who's watching. Thank you for dealing with the few minutes here of tech stuff.
Yes, very much so. Unfortunately, the people who view my videos know I go through this every time with Facebook Live videos. So for those watching who don't know me, I'm Dani LeBerry. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a certified addictions professional. And I want to acknowledge you guys for joining us. I know it's 10 a.m. on a Wednesday, and you guys could be anywhere right now and you're here watching our live video. If you're at work and you're sneaking us under the desk, putting in your headphones and, kind of listening in, thank you so much for doing that. And Kim for joining. And before we begin, just as a disclaimer, Kim and I had talked about this a couple days ago. So we're not doing this as any form of medical advice. I'm a licensed clinician. I am not your licensed clinician. So just so you guys are aware, this is more for informative purposes. And just to give you guys a little background on how I came up with the idea, last couple weeks, maybe it was a couple weeks ago, I follow a young lady named Amy Porterfield, and it's so funny because I had a business coach last year that suggested that I start following her content and everything. And I went to a birthday party a couple weekends ago, and somebody told me, "Oh, do you ever follow Amy Porterfield stuff?" And I had been kind of ups and downs the last couple of months dealing with my own challenges and depression. And I listened to her podcast on entrepreneurship and depression, and it really resonated with me. And I know with today being World Mental Health Day, I thought, how awesome would it be to talk about it? And I didn't, it's an uncomfortable, it's not an easy subject to talk about because there's such a stigma. And I didn't want to just come on here and talk about it by myself. So I threw it out in all the different networks that I'm in. And it was really funny because different people would say things like, and I'm not, disregarding anybody's experience and knowledge and expertise. It was really cool. A lot of women, I wanted to be a woman specifically, and a lot of people responded saying, I've been a such and such for this many years, and I have this certification. And Kim was I think Kim was actually the only person that she said what her background is, but she also shared having experienced depression. And I was like, boom, that's my person. That's my girl. That's the person I want to do this with. So Kim, again, thank you so much. I figured I'd give you a chance to go ahead and share a little bit about yourself, just so you guys know. Kim is amazing. She's a mindset coach. She's a business mentor for driven, heart-centered solopreneurs and coaches. And she's a former actress, which is pretty cool, with a background in psychology, marketing, and sales. And she is, like myself, on a mission. She's helping people make a living doing what they set their hearts on fire for. So go ahead, Kim, and introduce yourself.
Well, thank you for the wonderful introduction. Again, thank you for having me, and everyone, thank you for being here. I see a couple of faces I know, so thank you all for being here with us. It means a lot to me. And yes, as you said, I'm a mindset coach and I'm a business mentor. So that's the work I do, but I came about this in a roundabout way. And the way I'm so passionate about, the reason I'm so passionate, the reason I want to be here talking with you is very much I experienced depression. It's very much a part of my story. And I think I'm really obsessed with how the mind works, how our mindset affects us, just how the brain works neurologically, how we're wired, and how we have this ability to rewire our brain. And I think the reason I'm so tapped into that, or why that's so important to me, is because I needed to latch onto that to know that I was able to get out of what felt like, am I allowed to curse while we're talking? I don't know.
Of course. Yeah.
I felt like I was in hell for a very long time. And so I think a lot of my work is born from that. And then, I'm also an ex-actress. I also have a very big passion for expressing ourselves and this very fundamental belief that we all can make a living doing what we love, and that absolutely when we're able to work through these mindset blocks, and when we can get rid of overwhelm, when we can work through these fears we have that keep us hiding in plain sight, we are all so capable of tapping into what lights our heart on fire, things like what we're talking about here, and making a living doing what we love. I've seen it time and time again. And so that's a little bit of my story, just why I'm so passionate about what I do. And I'm happy to I don't know how exactly you want to do this. I'm happy to answer any questions, share my story, give my background just in terms of depression. So I'll let you kind of fire away at me.
Awesome. Great. And I know I mentioned a little bit about myself earlier. I've been a licensed clinical social worker and a certified addictions professional. Overall, for the last 10 years, I've been practicing in substance abuse and mental health. And something that I shared with Kim, we all kind of go into these lines of work when we have some sort of past experiences. For those of you watching, for Kim's followers watching that aren't familiar with my story, through middle school, high school, and college, I'm having a lot of challenges with low self-esteem, something that I hid from a lot of people, and anxiety developed over time. Growing up in Homestead, usually the idea of beauty is girls that are thick or just, and I'm very skinny. And so dealing with your flat chested, and I had a lot of acne and braces, and struggling with what was beauty. And so over time, I ended up involved in unhealthy codependent relationships. I started self-medicating as a way to fulfill those voids and fill those needs, and realizing even going to school as a social worker, realizing that here I am doing the very things I'm teaching people not to do. And so I developed an appetite for just self-help and reading and mindfulness and different therapies. And so here I am, fast forward today now, helping and supporting other women who struggle with addiction. And instead of calling it an addiction, I call it an affinity, because there's such a stigma with the word addiction. So an affinity for unhealthy relationships, affinity for alcohol. And entrepreneurship and depression is something that's very dear to my heart. I told Kim this when we spoke. I said, if you're watching this, whether you're watching it live right now or you're watching the replay, this is no means as a lead magnet. I'm not looking to sell anything. We're not looking to sell anything. We're not looking for you to opt in. We're not looking for your email address.
Right.
I really wanted to do this as a support,
Yeah.
because as an entrepreneur, we tend to isolate ourselves. We're very focused on our business. And sometimes we're in a unique position that sometimes our friends don't understand. Recently, I went over to a friend's house and I was telling her just how depressed I had been over the summer. And she said to me, Dani, like, I don't understand why you're depressed. You live in Boca, and I live in a nice area in Boca Raton, and you drive a nice car. I don't see like how you could be depressed. And so it was interesting, as far as even shame and guilt, that sometimes people who may not understand, they see it from the outside, but they don't realize, that cliche, of course, money doesn't buy happiness. But aside from that, you could have a great life on the outside and still feel really empty on the inside.
Absolutely.
And what were your thoughts on that? I know, Kim, we talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, just so many. I mean, it resonates a lot with me and with my story. And I think, just first, I want to say to everyone watching, so I looked up some stats before this. 49% of entrepreneurs have one form of mental health disorder or mental health problem, and then I think it's 32%. Don't quote me on the stats. I didn't memorize these before. Have one or more, and I'm sure you can speak to this from the work you do. Often, when we have one form of mental health problem, we're more prone to another. And so I think just in terms of having a conversation around this, this is absolutely not to bring in business, but to have a really real conversation, because that means most likely in the entrepreneurial space, 1 out of every other person we're talking to is going through this or has gone through this, and yet not that many people are talking about it, which means we feel ashamed or we feel guilty or we feel like we're broken or there's something wrong with us, and there's such a stigma around it. So absolutely, that's, I think, why it's so important to have this conversation. One of the things that's so important to me to share is no one's broken. I mean, this is something I've done a lot of research and work on. This tends to be the way our brain is firing. There's a part of our brain called to get really geeky for a second, but just to normalize it, called the deep limbic system. And often when we're depressed, it's running hot. So that's no different than if you have like a fever or something. You wouldn't say if you have a fever, oh my gosh, I'm the worst human ever. I can't tell another person. But for some reason, when it's mental health related, we think that we're the worst human in the world because we have this thing that is manifesting in things like our motivation and drive. But the deep limbic system is also attached to our motivation, which means if you're depressed, you tend to feel sluggish and like you don't want to move. So just to the shame piece, and I'll share just in terms of what you're saying, I started experiencing depression, I think it was in 6th grade the first time I experienced it. And this is something we talked about as well. I think I want to be mindful. This is not to get attention, and this is not to say one person's depression is, we can get in competition strangely around it. But it was a very severe form of depression, and I did a lot of really harmful things to myself because I didn't want to be around. I didn't want to be on this planet, on this earth, and I relapsed with depression quite a few times. And one of the reasons I want to have this conversation is I remember the first doctor I went to basically told me I had nothing to be upset about and to buck up, to snap out of it. And that was a very educated, very well-meaning doctor who took one look at me, to what you were saying. I had everything you should be happy about. And I think that's the misnomer or misconception with depression, that it's just about happiness. And so often it really is not. To say you have nothing to be upset about, snap out of it. And thank God I went on to seek other help, or we might not be having this conversation. And so I'm looping around it a little bit, but I think that's why it's just so important for all of us to start talking, whether it's on a live like this or with friends or with other entrepreneurs, to bring a little light to it and to normalize it a little bit. I don't know what your thoughts are on
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah, and then even like Kim and I were talking about how it's interesting, we're definitely not here to, I like her word how she uses it. She has an article, by the way, Kim. We can post, if you can, I'll send the link because I have it in my messenger. I'll post it after the video so you guys have it in the comments. She has a really awesome article, but in the article she mentions, we're not here to commoditize it. We're definitely not here to glamorize depression. And we're also not here to say, if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to be depressed either.
Right. Because we can do that to ourselves. We can think suddenly we hear this that, oh my gosh, 49%, that means we can, make it a self-fulfilling prophecy. So no,
Right.
not that at all.
Right. Should I be depressed? Maybe I'm supposed to be depressed now.
Right. It's
So
what all the cool
definitely,
kids are doing.
yeah, so we're definitely not here to do that. But I do want to acknowledge that if you're in that space, or if you ever get in that space, that it is okay and it's normal. Recently, and I'll be very open with you guys because I see a lot of awesome people tuned in, and I really appreciate, once again, for those of you who joined a little late, I want to acknowledge you for being here and checking this video out. I know it's a Wednesday at 10 in the morning, so thank you, Eastern Standard Time. So I will share that I'm reading a couple of the comments here.
Yes. And
Thank
I
you
see a
guys
couple of
again.
I know. Thank you guys for being here.
Yeah, I understand this is key to. So John Paulo, conversations about this in safe spaces with people who also understand this is the key to learning how to manage through these things. Absolutely. I can't tell you guys, I'll get a little bit vulnerable. And it was funny because I processed this with my therapist yesterday. And I was like, she was very proud of me for doing this. And I said, I'll gauge how vulnerable I get depending on the audience and who shows up. So just to get a little bit vulnerable, and I shared this with Kim, even myself recently. And I think that you guys know, the people who follow my content, for over the summer, an event occurred, and I can't unfortunately get into the details because of like HIPAA and confidentiality. Unfortunately for me, it didn't directly hit my business affinity, but it indirectly affected me as a person, and I kind of vanished from everybody. And it actually, now that I think about it, it did impact affinity. I wasn't there. I wasn't present over the summer for a couple months. And then when I came back, everybody was like, where have you been? Where were you? And I had to deal with my own isolation and my depression. And it wasn't a matter of, I want to kill myself. It wasn't like I want to shoot myself or something like that. But it was a feeling of, I want to go to sleep and I don't want to wake up. I don't want this reality to exist, and feeling just so alone. And when I heard that podcast, and I thought, so this is just a bad patch in my life. This is a bad part. Everybody has bad patches in their lives. And learning to accept it instead of fighting it constantly of, I shouldn't be feeling like this. I should be grateful. I should be happy. What's wrong with me? Mm-hmm. And these thoughts, and here I am shaming myself. Mm-hmm. and shaming what's going on. And I like when Kim, if you can speak a little bit more on this, I love that she says how our brains are wired a little differently as entrepreneurs and creators.
Yeah, so I mean, thank you for sharing that, because I think that's it's never easy to share those darker moments, and I think it's important too, because I think from the outside looking in, you have a successful business, everything we were talking about, and I think especially because of the work you do and the work I do, I think it's easy for people to think, well, they can't feel that way, or that can't happen for them. And I also think if you're in this space, I know I have a lot of coaches I work with, there can be that extra guilt of, well, I shouldn't feel this way because I should be able to fix it. And I think just to what you're saying, I think that's part of the misnomer. There's nothing to fix because you are not broken if you're depressed. There is something going on, even if it's because of a trauma or something that has triggered that. Your brain, again, like, it's nothing to fix. It's something to manage or to heal or to change and shift through, but it's not like, oh my gosh, you're doing something wrong. So that's the first thing I just wanted to say there. And just in terms of some of the symptoms, that is part of the symptom. And I think we can think, if we're looking at someone else's who is depressed, that they're so lazy, like why won't they just get up and do something about it, like snap out of it type of thing. And again, that's a symptom of depression. Just like if you had a cold, you would be sneezing. A symptom of depression is you don't want to get out of fucking bed, and everything feels like you're walking through sludge uphill and it's like pouring down on you, so why bother? So just to normalize it a bit, I hope no one's feeling that way, but just if you're in that space, to normalize it. And also, it's so manageable, and it's so something that can get better. I mean, so like, I'm such a happy person, like so much better. And I do think as entrepreneurs and creatives, those are the people I work with, I do believe our brains are wired a little bit differently. So I've read a few books about this, and I think just the way, part of what makes us prone to be an entrepreneur, part of what makes us prone to be a creative. So I used to be an actor. I have a lot of actor friends. Part of the way our brain is wired that makes us want to do these things is also, I believe, part of what has us more prone to things like depression and anxiety. So again, doesn't mean it's going to happen for you if you're an entrepreneur or creative, but also just to normalize it a little bit, that it's just like, I'm trying to think of what a good example is, but if you were a football player, you're probably more prone to tear your Achilles heel. I don't know if that's a football player injury, but I think it's just to say that we're probably a little more prone, and our brains are probably wired a little differently, and our brains are amazing and they do so many great things for us. This is just one of those things that doesn't serve us, and so learning how to take care of ourselves so that it's not getting in our way and making us feel we're walking through sludge. I don't know if that answered your question. I went around about that a little bit.
No, it totally does. It totally does. And then even of like, as far as the pressure too of building a business. And then sometimes, it's interesting because I'm just kind of thinking about some of my friends, my closest friends, and it's so difficult when people don't understand what the demand is of building a business. And so that can even, contribute to that thing of like isolation and not getting up out of bed.
Absolutely. Right. Sometimes the very thing we need to help shift part of those symptoms and part of what's coming up when you're depressed. And again, I want to be really mindful that depressed it's more than a feeling. So it's not just feeling shitty. I mean, it can manifest in different ways. So sometimes it can manifest in your eating patterns or your sleeping patterns, and to what you're talking about. So I just want to be very mindful of that. And also, disclaimer, not a therapist. I never said that earlier. But I think part of being an entrepreneur, you have the pressure. Absolutely. I think same for a lot of creatives. There's pressure, and it's a lot of us are working solo or alone. And so absolutely, like if I don't want to certain days, if I don't have a client, I don't have to get out of bed at a certain time. I can stay in my sweatpants all day long if I'm not doing it live, and I don't have to get up and do certain things. So it's also easy to, the things we need to do to take care of ourselves that are the things that are 10 times harder when you're depressed. Getting up and going for a run, 10 times harder if I'm in a depressive episode, are also 10 times easier to avoid when you're working by yourself and there's no one waiting for you at the office to say, you haven't showered in 2 days. Like, what's up with you? So again, just to, I think, normalize it a bit, and like, hi, I've definitely been there.
I have goosebumps right now because that's so true. As far as, even when I don't think I thought about that. I don't think I thought, like, I remember going into it and being like, oh, I can be on the beach with my laptop and be an entrepreneur. And I didn't realize, having to really work for the clients and having to really, and be, yes, it is great. I light a candle when I sit on my dining room table. I'm on my laptop, but that is it sounds nice, but you're so right, Kim, as far as if I don't have to get out of my apartment, I end up here, and I end up like in the same clothes, and then, not to be gross with anybody, but it's like I have to make a conscious effort to go out. I have to have a dinner with somebody. I have to make a conscious effort to get showered and to change and because it's not like I'm going to an office every day. And so it's very easy to fall into this like sloth-like habits.
Absolutely. And I think that's for any entrepreneur, even if you're not wired or prone to depression or going through depression. So then if you add on top of it, if you're going through depression or wired for depression and feeling depressed, then what you're talking about, it is like trying to finish a marathon to get yourself out of bed and to do those things, because you also don't have, I know when I was younger, when I had probably my worst depressive episode, one of my saving graces was I'm also, for better or worse, a bit of a people pleaser and a bit of a, I want to make people proud and I care about those things. So the one part of me wanted to not be on this earth and was doing horrible things, but the other part of me also didn't completely want to fail at school and wanted to at least show up and wanted to take care of myself for probably not the healthiest reasons, but they were healthy in that moment. And I think as an entrepreneur, we don't always have those things, and we have to seek them out, or we have to give ourselves that motivation that we maybe don't have when we're going through depression. So it can be a really tough thing, which is, I think, why we're talking about this and normalizing it. And also, I think part of what I want to share with everyone is then if you're feeling that way, knowing that sometimes we can't do it alone and we shouldn't do it alone. And that's, I think, part of what we were talking about. And what I want to share is when you are depressed and when you're feeling that, I think, especially as entrepreneurs, we're go-getters. We know we can literally make money out of thin air, make a business out of thin air. So there's this mentality that I can do anything. And with something like depression, and even with business, I mean, I invest in a coach. I believe in support, but especially with something like depression, no one should be going through this alone. You don't have to go through this alone. And oftentimes we can't. And that same mentality is what can really harm us. So I don't know if you want to speak to that, but I think that's, if I was going to say anything, just giving people permission to ask for help and seek out support, because there is so much support available when you're feeling like you're in fucking hell.
Absolutely. I can't tell you right now, my heart is throbbing. um, Even, what you just shared, Kim, resonates with, back to John Paulo, by the way. Thank you for being so active in the comments.
I'm just all these.
I know, I kind of forget, and I see them popping up. So, what you were just mentioning, even like as far as, not to say we're full blown people pleasers, but as far as entrepreneurs, we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our clients and our consumers. And something that he mentioned here, which I love this, as entrepreneurs, we seem to have to learn these ways faster. In my case, it's been an insurmountable amount of pressure I put on myself. And when I failed to achieve several goals, I tend to feel depressed. And that kind of piggybacks on what you just said. And it's kind of like a catch-22 almost, because I find, and I don't know if this is with you, I love your post, Kim, by the way, in one of the group that we are in, where I found you in. It's interesting when you're an influencer, and the idea is that you're positive, and it was funny because I was telling someone else about, how I was just feeling really sad. And he said to me, yeah, but you're Miss Positive. And so once again, it's like,
so many thoughts on this.
Yeah, it's kind of like a catch-22, because I'm supposed to be influencer, right? I'm supposed to be positive, but I'm human too. And then I end up putting like pressure on myself to put this image up in front of everybody, when really I'm feeling like crap, and sometimes when I feel like crap, I'll put the quotes that resonate with feeling like crap and being okay about it. So go ahead, Kim.
No, I don't want to cut you. I'm like, yes, thank you for saying that, because I think there's so much truth in that. And I just, in terms of being positive all the time, I fully subscribe to positive psychology. It's a part of my work, but I think there's such a misunderstanding that positive psychology and being in this space, especially, I'm a mindset coach. That's half of my work in business strategy, but part of it's mindset, that we are supposed to just be positive and happy all the time, and that the answer to everything is just to positive our way through life. And that is such a load of BS, and that will actually set most of us back more. Like, I will not hijack this conversation around that, but it's not how our brains are wired. It's not how we are meant to be in this world. It's also not how we will thrive. Nothing will keep us stuck more than trying to be positive when we're feeling that way. It's like trying to argue with an irrational 2-year-old who wants a piece of candy, and you can't do it. You're not going to win. It's the same thing with trying to argue or positive our way out of negative emotions, which is a little different than depression, but just in general, negative emotions. It literally doesn't work with the way our brain is wired. Those limitations will always win. And I think the more we can normalize and accept that, yes, positive thinking is powerful. Yes, we want to strive for those emotions. Yes, we can rewire our brain. Yes, we can have more positive than negative, but also accepting that some of those negative emotions are part of the human experience and normal. And the more we can accept those and move through them, ironically, the faster we move through them and feel positive. But we don't do that through like, I'm just going to be happy now and like affirmation myself by saying like, I'm happy, I am happy. It doesn't work that way. Sorry, I'm like very passionate about this and I'll get on the soapbox, but I think it sets
Me
a lot of
too.
us back. And again, to the guilt and shame, it has a lot of
Right.
us making ourselves wrong and feeling like we're doing something wrong and that we're broken, when in fact we're human and normal, and evolutionarily, like that's how our brain is wired to keep us in survival. And
Mm-hmm.
so yes, we can shift, but we can't shift that way. Anyway, end rant. But I think it's important to what we're speaking about.
It's true, right? And I'm laughing so hard because I know that even I do that, and I had to
Me
learn
too.
recently, of like and I tell people, oh, what resists persists. We tend to like, I think sometimes we give better advice than we follow ourselves. So I'm laughing so hard because that's true. That's what I do.
Oh,
And
I've
so,
been there. And I mean, I
um,
work with my own coach on, I mean, this is, and I think that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur too. Nothing causes us to go through self-growth more. And this is an ongoing growth for me. So I'm not depressed right now, very blessed. And I've learned a
mhm.
lot of tools, but that does not mean that I am not I'm working with my own coach and not constantly working with on my own mindset, even though I'm helping others with it. And so just to normalize even that a bit. So yes, to what you're saying, I mean, so I can say this because I've been the girl writing 1,000, like, I'm just going to positive my way through this and it's going to work. It is the magic bullet.
Yeah.
So I can say it's not.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I wanted to see if you guys had any questions. I see the comments are going crazy here. That's awesome. I'm so happy that you guys are on and watching this video, and the support that's streaming through. Because it's a little bit, interesting. I don't want to say challenging, maybe not even uncomfortable. It's a different topic to kind of talk about, of something as far as like something that's a stigma or depression.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Definitely on point. All right. Love this discussion, engaging, informative. And if anybody has any particular questions, either for Kim or for myself, before we go into the answers, the solution, because I don't
Yes.
want to leave everybody just hanging.
Yeah. And I'm an
Um,
open book. So if anyone does have a question, I'm happy to share anything that would be helpful for anyone going through depression or who knows someone who is. So if anyone does have a question, feel free.
Definitely. Yes. And of course, another disclaimer, and I know some of you already know this. If you're having any thoughts of harming yourself or other people, definitely reach out, call 911, reach out to a licensed clinician immediately. I see a lot of supportive comments.
Thank you for the
So
support.
let's see.
And while you're looking, I'll add my disclaimer again, too, that I'm not a therapist. So this is to have the conversation and bring some awareness, but I'm not a therapist.
All right. So I don't see any questions. If you guys do have, oh, that's great. Yes, a simple phone call to check up on a friend is priceless. Oh, I'm so glad you said that. Because I tell a story. I can't remember where I read this. And Kim, I don't know, you've probably heard this before. I read this somewhere where a man was on the way to actually commit suicide, and he told himself that, no one acknowledges him. And if somebody would just acknowledge him, that he wasn't going to do it. And on the way there, somebody did just kind of look up and say hello, and he didn't end up doing it. I can't remember if that was a TED talk or in a training I had been to, but I always make it a point, even if I'm in an elevator and I'm walking right by someone, to acknowledge them. That's just a little side note that comment
It gave
reminded
me
me of.
goosebumps and almost made me cry. And I think I mean, I sadly know people who have taken their life, and I know people who have tried to, that have stopped. And I think just to what we're saying, and thank you for that comment, for who left that, because I think we don't always realize how much someone sometimes just needs that person to reach out, and especially when someone's in that dark place. And I think we're all so busy in this world right now, and
Hmm.
and it's fine. We all have our own lives, and we absolutely all have to take care of ourselves, but sometimes just that reach out to someone who needs it is quite literally life-changing. So, and I think that's where the seriousness of this conversation, we've been having fun with it and joking around too, but I think that is the really serious part of this conversation is depression is, it's life-threatening. I don't have the stats in front of me, but they are not pretty stats. And so thank you for whoever left that comment.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll shift into, we have about 5 minutes left, so we'll shift into solutions now that we've talked a lot extensively about this. Kim, I know you had a couple of things.
Yeah, so I think the first thing again is just to say if you are feeling depression, to know that you don't have to go through this alone, and you're not only are you not alone. I mean, as entrepreneurs, it's 49% of us, it sounds like, but you're not alone. But I think it's really brave and courageous, and especially when you're in that place when you don't want to get out of bed, I think it's one of the bravest and most courageous things we can do to seek out support, someone like you or someone, depending on where you're at, whether it's with a coach or a therapist. So just to give everyone permission to know there's no shame in it. So that's one of the first things I will say. I think there's a great book that is, I highly recommend it. And we talked about this. I still don't know if it's Dr. Amen or Dr. Aman, but Amen, I think it's Amen. Amen. Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. It's brilliant. It's a really, really, really brilliant book, and it speaks about the different parts of our brain. So it's not just depression, but mental health in general, but what's happening in the brain. And he gives some really great tips and tools in terms of mental exercises you can do, supplements you can take, and then also what type of medication is sometimes really helpful. And I think to that, I will also say, I think there's a stigma around the medication part as well. And I currently don't take medication. I currently have, I do this for a living now, so I have tools under my belt, like up the wazoo, and I can catch when depression wants to come in. But when I was in middle school and I was kind of fighting for my life with depression, I was very much on medication, and I don't think I would have been able to get myself to the place to receive tools and therapy had I not been on medication. And so I also just want to offer for those people who have been thinking about, I've had this conversation with friends a lot where they're thinking about medication or it's been offered to them, that it's not cheating and it's not a happy pill. They don't make you happy. They kind of normalize your brain so that you're receptive to therapy. We've got my cat scratching next to us here if you hear a noise. But just to, again, give people permission to look at that as a possible solution if you need it. And I'll let you share, because then I have all sorts of just maintenance, how I keep myself from not being depressed. But I'd love to hear some of your thoughts as well. I'm sure you have a ton.
Yes, absolutely. And I know Kim and I were joking about the name of the author because I was telling her how I've heard of that before. I've heard of his name before, and they were saying, we're going to call it Dr. Amen because that book is like amen. So if you have a chance, I have not read it yet. Kim is now, I think, the third or fourth person who I've heard about that book. So I'm like, I probably need to read it. The universe is telling me I need to read it. Also, a couple of comments. This is great. We will mention at the end how to get in contact with us. And I wanted to suggest BetterHelp. I was talking to Kim about it, actually. BetterHelp is how I found my therapist, actually. And it's an app. I have no affiliate links. I don't get paid to say this or anything like that. But it's an app and it's very convenient. Actually, if you look it up on Google, they have a lot of things on Pinterest. It's convenient. It's confidential. It's affordable. You can put in there, kind of therapist as far as being comfortable. Obviously, this is, for people who tend to be entrepreneurs, and sometimes, there's still that stigma of going and seeing a therapist or getting caught at the therapist's office, which is even one of the reasons why I have Affinity, is so that women can feel like they can work on their addiction in the privacy of their own home. So it's kind of the same idea. BetterHelp, you can do video sessions and chats and stuff like that. And I think that's a great way to ease into therapy without feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing a therapist and having to go to a therapist's office. So you could check it out. It's called BetterHelp. And, of course, reaching out to, if you don't feel comfortable doing that and you prefer somebody that's face-to-face, there's always psychologytoday.com. Psychology Today, if you put in your area, your zip code, they have a bunch of therapists listed and their pictures so you get to see what they look like and their background. And let me see here. And as far as getting in contact with us, Kim, how can people get in contact with you?
Sure. I didn't even think we were going to talk about that. But yeah, so my website is my name, kimmargetsinger.com. So that's really easy. I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook group, Business Besties and Creative Bosses. So I'd love to have anyone who wants to join there. And then across social media, I'm my name, at Kim Margetsinger. So it's really easy to find me. And I'm always happy to connect. I'm all about building relationships in general. And anyone who needs to have a conversation around this or just has any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm totally open to that.
Great. And I'm Dani, guys, for you guys that are watching. And you can reach me at affinitycarenow.com or on Facebook, facebook.com/affinitycarenow. And Kim is actually located in New York, right? You're in New York?
I'm in New York, but I grew up in South Florida, not that far from you. But yes, I'm in New York
Yes.
City.
That's right. That's right. So again, thank you so much, Kim. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Your vibe, your energy, everything about you was great. It was so apropos for this conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for opening this conversation up. I think it's just so important for more of us to be talking about this. So I'm grateful to you. I'm glad that you reached out in the group and that you picked me to talk about it because it's on my heart. It's something I want to share more about. So thank you for having me, and everyone who's watching, thank you for being here and for being so supportive and being open to this conversation. And can I share one last
Yes.
thought?
Yeah.
No, I said this before. It feels really important. I just want to remind everyone, if you're going through this, you are not broken. There's nothing to fix. And I just want to normalize it. And there's so much bravery and power in seeking out that support if you need it. That just makes you a stronger entrepreneur or a stronger creative. So I just, again, want to remind anyone who could be feeling through this, you're not alone and you're not broken. So that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you. That's important. That was a great reminder because you're right. That's true. People sometimes associate seeking support as weakness rather than as strength. So definitely, yes. Thank you for saying that, Kim. And thank you, guys. And if anybody wants to reach out, you can feel free to reach out to Kim on her website, or is Facebook Messenger okay?
Yeah, why not? I think the problem with Facebook Messenger is sometimes they go to that other folder. So we might need to become friends first, or hop into my group and just let me know if you've sent me a message. I'm fine with messages, but I know sometimes they get dumped. I don't check that other folder.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. So you
yes,
can definitely
absolutely reach out, and you can send an email as well. There's a contact form on my website. So if anyone does want to chat, so happy to.
Great. Awesome. And thank you guys again for watching. Remember, you're not alone. You can feel free to reach out to Kim or myself and feel supported. And you guys, it is World Mental Health Day. So now you know that we were doing this in honor of that. Thank you guys, and take care of yourselves. Take care of your loved ones and yourselves. Okay. That's very, very, very important. So I don't want to say namaste, but I don't know how to say goodbye in this kind of like context. So you guys take care. Namaste.
I will blow kisses. Take care, and so much love and compassion, everyone. And thank you all for being here, and thank you for having me.
Thanks, Kim. Bye.
Bye.